Hello. It's a good morning here from Sydney. It's 3 a.m. We're here for a Crazy House World Championship Candidates match. This is between Chicken Crossroad and xuanet. We're joining just as the first game is beginning. We've got e4, a6, knight c3, knight f6, d5. So early sack on f6. xuanet has taken the knight d4. Yeah, apologies, I just haven't put up a stream in a long time, but life's just been incredibly busy. I happen to be up at 3 a.m. just because Spencer has woken me up for a bottle and he's gone back to sleep, and it was so happened it was like 2:55 a.m. I knew this match was starting around 3 a.m. my time, so yeah, here we are. I'm gonna call this match. Katask in the chat. Hello. Okay. Yeah, two very strong players here. Stylistically, you've got xuanet, one of the most aggressive and tactical players in the game, and Chicken Crossroad, of course, absolute beast at Bug House, very well known, strong player at Crazy House too. So. Yeah, there's no bluffing either player here. If there's a mate to be found, xuanet is going to find it, and if there's a defense to be found, Chicken Crossroad is going to find it. So should be an entertaining match here. Early knight at h5. Yeah, I mean this is. I'm not entirely clear on a precise line here, but basically white is up a piece for a pawn, but black has very natural squares usually for development. This pawn on f6 is a nice asset for defense on black's king side. No immediate concern on knight takes g7 being a problem for black. So white here is trying to develop. Sometimes there'll be a pawn at h3, sometimes there'll be like a bishop g4. Nothing concrete necessarily just yet, but if yeah, the point often with a6 is that knight c6 is playable, and then there's no bishop b5. That doesn't really matter anymore because we're at a stage where black's already castled, has got this rook on the file. If castles, then pawn at h3 plans become more evident. So yeah, I'm just not sure yet. So chicken's gone for the trade on c3, knight at e4 early. Sometimes you might want to keep this knight for g2. Now knight takes g7 played. So xuanet in his expected style being very aggressive here. Chicken Crossroad low on the clock. I probably wouldn't have chosen this way forward, but it's quite challenging, quite sharp. So bishop d2 defends c3 is not even is ignoring that. So knight takes c3 could be on here. What's the idea? Maybe it's queen d2 and queen h6, because then you'd be threatening mate here. So if knight takes c3, queen d2, knight at e4, queen h6, king g8. Like black's may be able to get away with it. This is going to be interesting because this is what I mean. You can't bluff either player. So if Chicken thinks he can win the material, he'll go for it. And xuanet's going to bring a queen out if he can. So I don't think white has quite enough here, but we'll see if xuanet can prove something. If knight at h5, knight at f5, have to defend g7, keep an eye on this, so it could be something like queen f4, which would threaten here, but queen f4, pawn at g7. So we're going to see some classic, classic aggression versus defense here. You could just take a pause, queen takes e4, because if bishop takes, you get rid of this bishop at c3 problem. You're still threatening queen takes f5, knight at h6, so chicken under pressure on the clock here. If pawn at g7, in fact xuanet should be satisfied because the material is even, but he's got the initiative. So xuanet's actually proven something here already. Castle is a wise move, just consolidating the advantage. Material is dead even, but white has the initiative. White's got two bishops and a pawn in hand. You have to give credit to xuanet here. Bishop at c4 could be a way to continue pressure, but no, he's going straight for f6. I put this game in firmly in the hands of xuanet at the moment. It doesn't matter if there's a concrete finish yet. You could build with rook fe1, threaten to take here, and take on e8, play knight takes f6. Now, he's opened up f6 here. You wouldn't take that because I don't think it's enough, but you could play bishop at f6, pawn at e7. Even here, rook e8 I think is still a move. Wow, sacks the queen because if takes, bishop takes f7. Knight e5, king e6, knight at c5, knight at f4 doesn't work. So here's where you've got to be accurate with white here, because someone like chicken will get away if you let him. So knight at c5, king d5, c4 check, takes, check, king e4, pawn at f3 looks like mate. So king here, c4, king d6 would be forced, but then you've got knight f7 here, takes the queen with check. This is enough for white to win. Okay, xuanet will see this for sure. This is mating in two moves. You'll find this one. Okay. Bfurl, welcome to the chat. Yes, saw you posted a message in the Lichess forum. I'm here to do commentary, so that's your answer. xuanet takes the first game. Nice aggressive game. I wasn't entirely convinced, but he came up with the goods. Okay, who else we got in the chat? We've got Oppa. We've got Katask. Who is Katask? Now number one on Lichess rating list. Katask is the latest talent to join the Crazy House community. Very strong player. Has been studying the game very hard and been playing a lot of Bughouse on chess.com as well with top tier players like chickencrossroad, Helm's Knight, Jasugi 99, and I think it's actually a very good measure of the talent, and that Bughouse, is quite non-theoretical as well. So I know Katask is quite well known here already as studying the game quite hard and having a big edge with theory, but if you can match it with the likes of Jasugi, Helm's Knight and Chickencrossroad in Bughouse as well, then you've certainly got some big talent under your belt. Hello to Jindriaso and Zavaljenek. Sorry if I've pronounced them incorrectly. Zavaljenek says hello from Slovenia. Ominous ZH says xuanet sure knows how to attack. That's right. Okay. 1-0 to xuanet. So e4, e5 played. So an early d4 here. And I mean, quite often we'll see this knight swing into f5. I think popular line might be something like knight f6, knight f5, castle. B4. Cheered 1,000 bits. Very generous. Thank you for that, B4. Appreciate the support. Alright, xuanet already having a think here. Katask putting in the chat, I think Chicken understands this structure well. Wow, d5. Okay. So, is that a move here? Let's see, because that's... I mean, d5 is often a move when knight f6 and knight c3 has been played, but there could be a critical difference trying to play this move order. I have a feeling xuanet maybe was trying to avoid a position where white gets a knight to f5, so just put an early d5 in. So this is good. This is interesting because we'll see where the players move in this unfamiliar territory. So right now there's piece under attack. So black's basically asking white, well, are you either willing to go, all in with an attack with pawn at e6, or you're going to respect this attack on the bishop, play bishop e2, and let me regain some space with c takes d5. So you can tell by the time Chicken's using, this is new territory already. We're only on move 7. And I really like this when it's non-theoretical as well myself. I think you're challenging the understanding of your opponent very early. Regardless of whether it's theoretically correct or not, it's a very practical approach on the day of the match. So knight h5, very quickly trying to target g7. If king f8, you could consider taking here possibly, but then maybe just knight takes c4 anyway. So pawn at h6. I'm not really a fan of king f8. I would have preferred to see knight takes c4. You force white to take here, then play king f8, because this move order allows pawn at h6, which is more difficult to deal with. You can't actually take this either way with ease, because of pawn at g7 to follow. So knight takes h6, bishop takes h6 isn't much fun. Maybe you have to commit to bishop f6 now, but then pawn at g5 maybe could be an answer. And this is where it's just very subtle things that matter. Just this move order of knight takes c4 or king f8 can already lead to a critical advantage, I think. Yeah, so takes, knight at h5. Like one variation is king g8, pawn at g7. If you try to defend with knight at g6, rook at h8, takes, king takes, pawn at g7, king g8, knight at h6 mate is already one continuation. So you'd nearly think after knight at h5, black has to commit to king h6 to avoid being mated. Yeah, I wouldn't have come back because there's no knight at g6 defense for this. I think king h6 was a safer option. I mean, a king on h6, but relative safety there. Not saying black was necessarily better, but I think much better fighting chances. This just looks game over already. Because even if f6 you try to run, there's this nasty d takes c6 discovery check, which opens up both the d file and the diagonal. So once you block on e6, queen takes d8, and then there's going to be a rook or a queen. It's just all over. So that's the trick. Knight at g6, rook at h8 is still mating. And we're going to see it. f6, d takes c6 is just like glory move for white here. Yeah, Chicken can just take his own sweet time on what order he wants to win this game in. Pawn at d5 is no help, you just capture that with the queen straight away. So an example, pawn at d5, queen takes d5, queen takes d5, bishop takes, pawn at e6, rook at h8, king e8, and queen at e8 mate. Black resigns. Yeah, so xuanet made a few critical mistakes there. One, well, I suppose, king f8 maybe could have been okay if he proceeded the king up to h6, but combined with bringing the king backwards after pawn at g7, Chicken very clearly demonstrated some clean finishing right there and then. So we've got the same opening here. You've got faster move times out of the blocks from Chicken. xuanet opting for knight f3 here instead of knight at h5, perhaps just looking to castle a bit quicker. So bishop e2. No, he's going bishop d2 this time, so he's completely changed how he's getting set up. And I guess, I was talking last time about a pawn at h3 and knight at g2, but it doesn't always, pawn at h3 too early is not always good because white might get rook g1 and start opening up a line on the king. I agree with Katask's comment here. This seems a little slow for white. So knight c6. Because here if you castle, then pawn at e4 is an issue. This bishop kind of blocks d4. I mean, white's up a piece for a pawn, but as white you actually, you want to develop as quickly as you can, as efficiently as you can. Every tempo counts because all of black's pieces just have very natural, natural setup, and so the extra piece is in a way compensated by how well all of black's pieces can get coordinated here. One move like bishop d2 could be enough to give black a bit of extra time, which makes it a bit awkward. So having said that, I don't have a clear continuation. Here pawn at h3, I was just mentioning, white might play rook g1. But the play for black would be something like a bishop h3, knight at g2. That's usually an idea. And this, it's f3, g2, which are the weaknesses that you would commonly go for. In a way, I suppose, to give the analogy, sometimes it's used in poker where they say a very good hand plays itself. With black's position here, there's always a very clear plan, and in a sense, you can't go too far wrong because as long as you're going for the light squares, you're heading in the right direction. So here, if king f1, you might play knight e3 check, win the queen. In this case, f3 is under attack, rook at f1's a mate threat. So, it's not over straight away, but it's uncomfortable. Like knight at e3, rook at h1. If you block with g1, takes here, you lose a piece here. If you block with bishop at f1, takes, pawn at g2. Like black's recovering material, very safe king. So yeah, bishop at f1, you can just pick off a knight for free. I mean, black's very happy here. So if we count the material, white's down a piece for a pawn and a rook, plus, the position is very much in black's favor. So Chicken doesn't have to come up with a knockout blow here. I mean, just winning material is good enough. You could probably take e2. Queen takes, you just pick off e5. What's critical here is not letting xuanet back into the game with any initiative. So you could even play something like rook at e4 and just force white to consume another piece, and then pick off e5. I don't really think white can come up with an attack straight away, but if you really wanted to be conservative, yeah. So bishop at c4, maybe queen g4. I'd be I wouldn't be surprised if xuanet tries queen g4 to try to launch an attack. I think rook at g6 is still covering. Oh well, even rook at e4 is still a resource here, so that ends that. There's a nice rook fork. You don't see that in chess very often because it's difficult to get a rook in a position where it forks two pieces unless you're capturing something. So queen g4, rook at e4. So the idea of this is like if you block with the bishop, then black can improve. Even with the knight, if you take with a pawn, knight at c2 check wins a rook. If you take this way, then f takes e5 means that black's now got an open file to attack with. So pawn at e4 I'm a bit surprised about, because f takes e5 look very natural to just liquidate white's center with tempo. Not that this is going to be a bad position for black. It just, just technically here, against one of the most aggressive players in the world, I would just try to ensure that I'm limiting any chance of counterplay. So queen takes f5 probably, but then knight takes f1 is fine as well. So both players coming down to about 30 seconds left on the clock. Still an edge for black. I just felt f takes e5 instead of pawn at e4 was really forcing the issue. So bishop at d7. That's a nice move. It's really to stop a knight at f5 kind of attack. Start rolling. I think you can start picking up pieces again. So xuanet won't be comfortable here because he doesn't have a clear path to attack. So Chicken's still doing a great job of preventing a solid path to counterplay. I'm still thinking this is a comfortable win for Chicken. Okay, king out. Oh, so queen f6. Threatening big here. xuanet resigns. And that's a price that white paid probably for not developing precisely in the opening. Okay, g6, bishop g7. This has probably been one of my pet openings recently, just to get into something non-theoretical very early. Okay, I think d6 is called for here, yes. And I've played this against Chicken several times. Chicken will know this setup as well. h3 is commonly played to avoid bishop g4. Bishop comes to e3 quite often, a queen d2 setup. This bishop has some options, e2, c4, b5. But you can pretty easily commit bishop e3 because that's going to be the main square. Black will normally castle. And so, black is usually passive in this opening, is giving up a space advantage. And, there is some understanding required with this, because playing either side, this can get very much in favor of white if white gets set up very nicely and just pushes h4, h5. But also if black is allowed to consolidate and can make an e5 push at the right point, This is a very common idea, by the way. You're basically playing for h6 and this really rock solid king side. Now here h4 could be on the books. So what's critical there is white was threatening f7, which has got black to play e6, because black usually wants to respond with something like bishop g4 against h4. You might get knocked around with f3, but sometimes at least then you'll have a weakness on g3 to play against. So Xuanet, not comfortable with allowing h5, has played h5 himself, which seems reasonable. So the question for black here is how you actually get activity. White doesn't have to castle either way. This king is quite safe in the middle here. While you don't have some kind of f3 move played, there's no easy weakness to penetrate in here. So bishop e2, I guess aiming for g4. You know, black might have to just play e5 here. It stops g4. It gives black some activity. You know, white's kind of allowed black to get some mobility by taking his eye off here. And I think, you know, Xuanet will probably try to play aggressively knight d4. And Jasugi saying black looking fine in my opinion. I agree. You know, this does test your middle game understanding of Crazy House. Really, this position, I think, among the best players. Even you know, it's really fine because if you let the trades come at the wrong time, possibly for either side, it can break in one player's favor. So here, I think black's nicely set up. Because white doesn't have a clear break in, and it could be like a pawn at h6 you want to play for, but you know, it's like, where are you going to trade a pawn from without losing material? You can't just play a knight takes e5 and go pawn at h6. Black can even play bishop takes e5 here, play very precisely, hold on for the piece with the pawn. So here we go. Xuanet, knight takes e2. Clocks are even. Position's quite balanced. You might even consider just pushing a pawn straight in here, because white's got nothing direct. Like you would, this wasn't what white was intending when bishop e2 was played, but white's basically put a bishop to e2, put a knight back. You know, it's black that's made some progress with space. So Xuanet here possibly spotting knight at c4 and looking for a knight to trade off. This is always a nice piece to capture. If you can get rid of this bishop on e3, there might be some kind of bishop at f4 pin. But even if you're not winning the queen, you know, you're just preventing white from ever getting an attack on h6. This I'm not as confident with. So this looks like to be Xuanet's plan. Trade off this bishop, but you know, now g4 may become more of an option. If you look back here, it would be really hard for white to get a grip to actually break, because so much of white's play is going to come from opening the h file if you can get g4 h5 in. But okay, Xuanet, you got a rook in hand. There's a knight coming on b3 soon. Maybe bishop at c4 is required to preserve this rook, because rook at h7 it becomes a mate threat. So knight at b3 would be quite comfortable here. Takes, maybe knight f6 to cover He just forgot rook at h7. Like, I just knew he was going to do that. And that's... Sometimes xuanet gets a bit of tunnel vision on attacking. And, yeah, I'm sorry to say that, but I'm not entirely surprised he forgot to defend his king there. Um, that's quite unfortunate, because xuanet had actually quite a very playable position as black. If I had that position as black, I'd be very happy against chicken crossroad, because I feel I've got a lot of levers to maneuver and work around there. But it's probably my personal preference to play a position like that, because I'm quite familiar with playing off the back foot from a passive spot, and grinding to maneuver an edge out of it. HT1992 says, at Johnny Crazy House, why didn't you play the candidates? Yeah, that's a good response from Katas. Jan's taking an organizer role this year. Honestly, I've been really struggling to even put a stream together to catch one of so many good matches on at the moment. I've got a newborn, well, he's not newborn anymore, he's now 15 months, but I'm just very time poor. Still working a full-time job. COVID time. I work for a hospital in a data capacity, and I'm very fortunate to still have a job, because a lot of people have lost their jobs in the cafe and restaurant businesses, among other businesses as well. But yeah, if anything, it's probably made us more busy. Hospital side, and then I've also got a couple relatives from Indonesia. My mother-in-law and grandmother-in-law, they've come over to Australia for pretty much. They made it to Australia about 12 hours before our borders were closed to other countries, with the specific reason of COVID, and just trying to stay safe, pretty much. So we've had a full house for the last probably just over 6 months, and yeah, there's not a minute spare. So I would even be struggling to schedule matches, because in Australia I usually have to come on at odd hours, and between looking after a baby and Bella kind of looks after herself more or less these days. She's 7 years old, but yeah, it's been a good decision, I think, not to play this year, and just have time for life. That's my extended response to that question. Let's get back to the game here. White's a pawn down, but has got some play on the dark squares here. If you play rook g6, is there some kind of bishop takes c7? You can't take back here because of queen takes e7 and knight takes d5. Bishop takes c7, you might take back with a queen, and then bishop takes c7, maybe knight takes d5 is still playable, still active. I only say this because if white doesn't get active soon, black gets to consolidate by putting on these additional pawns like pawn at e4, pawn at a3. So white is nearly forced to be active to do something, and bishop takes c7 looks like the most active way forward. The real edges says, want queen d2 better than queen e2. Idea to take d5. But then the queen is still hanging. Oh, okay, knight h4. So if queen takes, can he get away with it? No, bishop f6. Because if queen e4 block, you can actually take, and then queen at e7 or queen at d8 is mate. So that's a trick here. You don't go bishop g3 because the black can come back to e7 and actually get away with stealing a piece, but queen h4, bishop f6, knight at e4 takes... I mean, black doesn't quite have enough with bishop takes c3, pawn at d2. King d1 would be knight at b2 mate, but you could play queen takes d2 because if black wins a queen, queen at e7 and queen at d8 is still on in that situation. So, queen takes h4 avoided, preserves the rook. This is nice, very resourceful, hitting c3 again. And these are important tactics to understand this queen takes h4, bishop f6, just so the viewers understand what's holding this together. And this is just a nice move to say, well, I'm ignoring all your tricks. Where's this knight going? It doesn't go to g6 or f5. Bishop takes c6, bishop takes c7, sorry, is also no longer a move because rook takes c7 is easy coverage. So not that bishop takes c7 was necessarily, strong for white. I just felt that back here this was the active move. So Chicken coming up with the goods here, 3-1 lead and looking to extend it this game. So now bishop takes c7, but I feel that's a move too late because this knight on f3 was also covering d2 in defense. Now you've got to be careful of actually being attacked. Black doesn't even have to attack though, like rook takes c7 is perfectly fine. But he's going for it. So he might just go for a pawn at d2, knight at e4, avoid the trade of pieces. So knight at e4 is just saying I'm not trading queens. Okay. Wow, what's... Okay, no, I think xuanet just ran out of time. Knight at f6 was never going to be a move because it didn't matter if you captured with the queen or the pawn on e4. There was always a rook on c6 covering f6. Okay, what will xuanet choose? I thought xuanet actually was doing quite well with the perk setup, but it's possibly not his native kind of position to play because he is more of an aggressive player. So here you can see by his move order he's chosen, he's expecting an early d4, and he just wants to avoid the knight coming to f5. Maybe that's a sort of opening or position he prefers to avoid. Ooh, bishop takes f7. This seems like some kind of theoretical line. Pawn at f7. I don't think you can take this with the queen because takes and queen d5 looks decisive. You can't block pawn at e6 because of queen at f5, and the queens are coming in, so you actually have to concede a promotion on g8. Wow. Now this is a line that xuanet can play. This it's active. He's got attacking opportunities. This is his native sort of play. If you're chicken crossroad here, either xuanet knows something about this line, or he's just natively playing off book, and he's just spotted. I get queen takes g2, and I'm happy for the rest of the game. Interesting move, bishop g5 check. So you can't take it because of knight at e6 or knight at f7. But does it really gain anything? Pawn at f6. The idea, I guess, would be it's just helping to develop another piece which clears the back rank, but this knight's still not developed yet either. So probably pawn at f6. I don't think you should move this king because there's some additional mobility to be gained. So he's gone for pawn at e7. I don't know if there's any critical difference here. I guess pawn at f6 you can just take it, right? Because takes and you win the queen here. So pawn at e7, accurate block. I didn't spot that with pawn at f6. You don't want to give away a single pawn here if you can help it. But pawn at f6 is giving away a free pawn because of this pin. So I like this. Time well spent to spot that one accurately. Rook f1. Then you gotta start looking. Can you play like a knight at f3 and just get away with taking this? Because I think a couple knights is still playable. Ooh, e5. Look at the resource here. Defending with x-ray. Okay. He's gone straight for the rook capture, looking for the checks. So the thing is white doesn't have a knockout blow. If he blocks with the knight, you can just take the bishop and well, maybe then queen takes h8 is an issue. Ooh, blocks with the queen. Wow. Okay. Yeah, xuanet's in the driving seat here. I mean, even at worst, like, there's so many checks to be played here, but even at worst, just a capture here is not the worst position for black. It's probably not ideal yet. So bishop at b5 would make sense to defend this. You're up against c4 though, so you just got to decide if you want to go to a6, b5, bishop at h3. Knowing xuanet, he's not going to settle for defense here. He's going to try to push this with an attack. So something like a bishop at a6, queen at h3, take on h2. I just my hope for xuanet here is if he comes up against a position where he does not have a decisive kill shot, he will have to just settle for rook takes g8 and make sure he doesn't lose by being attacked here, because there was that game where he just left rook at h7 on, and I think there's a greater risk of xuanet losing from not cashing out on material at some stage. Even here, by putting this knight in a defensive position, like you could take g8 here, because if you play queen at h3, bishop g2, and then you're kind of forced into sacking a queen. Maybe then you go pawn at f3. So from a practical perspective, you either here you quickly play, say I've got material, I'm happy with this position, or you quickly play for something aggressive, so at least you have time on the clock. He's now got less than chicken. If you're trying to calculate for mate, it's probably not practical. So here he does go queen at h3. Let's see where he goes. So bishop g2, I'm predicting takes pawn at f3 because of this knight e5 check. But yeah, you've just got to be careful. If chicken's really gonna make xuanet play the positions, probably takes pawn at f3, get the knight to e5, king g3, and then actually bishop takes e7 becomes a threat because this knight's no longer defending e7. So this is going to be interesting. Let's see. Takes pawn at f3, takes e5, king g3. I think that's asking the toughest questions. Black should actually play knight at f5 to cover e7. If king g3 is played. Alright, he didn't play, so he can actually just take here. He could even take e2 here because bishop takes e2 is not. He just can't burn the clock. xuanet's in the driving seat here. He just can't burn the clock like this. Okay, he wants to do it all with check, it looks like. But he can't allow rook at d7. He'd better not get mated here. He's in danger of something. King e, yeah, it's close. Is there a queen d6 on? Takes queen d6, pawn at c7. He can survive this. I think xuanet wins this. Yeah, because he's got room to move. c7, critical. He left. It shouldn't have been this close though. Pawn it. He's just up to b6. He's low on time. Oh, this is not clear now. Rook at d7, queen d5. It wasn't quite there. King b6, king a5 looks safe. Oh, nail biter. This is just what I was talking about. That. Oh no! Don't take that. Should have just blocked. No, this could be white's win now. King a4 critical because this way it gets mated. No, xuanet. He just had to block on b5. He knight takes d5 gave white the mating piece. Pawn at b5 was easy safety there, but I mean, hats off to Chicken for being so resourceful in that position, but it should never have been that close. And you can see Jasugi's sad here because we, as an audience, you want the match to be close, and xuanet deserved the win all the way there. So that's kind of sad from a view of now it's 5-1 in Chicken's favor, and yeah. I guess the other sad point is I was afraid that would happen, and it actually did. So well played by Chicken though. Not taking anything from Chicken there. Let's just take a look at this opening. I'm just going to rewind it a sec. So what happened here? There's an early bishop c4, which looks out of place, but this doesn't look so easy for black to deal with. Pawn at g6, free pawn here. Okay, so bishop at g6 is trying to take c2. So that was an exciting game, last game. I think xuanet got out of the opening nicely here. I think also what this goes to show is at the top level, you know, you've got to attack well, but you've also got to defend well, because in that case, you know, even though xuanet let the gates open with an attack, he still had the defensive resources to hold it, and it's tough in a time scramble. But this is the quality of Chicken Crossroad. You can't bluff a player. They're gonna use every resource they have at this level. It's actually a pleasure to catch one of these matches live. I'm normally like you know, on a lunch break or something. I can have a look on Lichess and see what the latest results were. Flick through a couple games, but it's actually really nice to do a live stream. I haven't done it in so long. So somehow black just looks stuck in a mud very early in this opening. I've never seen this opening. Bishop c4 doesn't seem intuitive, but somehow, because queen g4 is allowed and there's a loose pawn on c4 and a loose bishop on g7, it just feels comfortable for white. So Chicken's cut his losses. He's saying, okay, I'm going to support my center, support the pawn on c4. I'm going to give up g6. At least I might get the file. And I'm holding on to g7. And maybe on a good day I get to play e5 and I get a center and I hit with tempo. So that's a decent practical decision. If you see xuanet thinking here before h takes g6, it's probably because he was looking for more in the way of initiative. Like this rook even comes out to h4. I mean, you shouldn't be afraid of taking material as white, but e5 is the one you want to be able to meet. I think you've got to take this, otherwise h5 just becomes a target when black gets to play e5. Okay, d3, but what against e5? So against e5, maybe queen e2. cd here, maybe there's some bishop c3, knight at c2. Like black can actually consider giving up the bishop and the dark square weaknesses for material here, because he might just say you don't have enough with a knight at g7. Like chicken would take the material if it's sound. I'm okay with bishop takes c3. I could be missing something horrendously obvious, but it seemed like a risk worth taking. Because now you've just, as black, you still need something to play for in the position. So maybe it is like an e5 push. Alright, xuanet's basically said, I'm going to cover c2. I don't mind if this gets traded. There'll be a queen takes a4 at some stage. He's just going to be happy he gets to play some aggression on the dark squares. So again, like last game where xuanet got a queen on g2, I feel this is his sort of comfort zone. It's not even that there's something decisive, it's just that he's got something to play for. So what's the move? Is it something like a knight at g8 maybe? I don't know if that does anything. Bishop g7 is fine. So xuanet's going to be looking at things like knight takes d5, knight takes f6 here. He didn't think long on that one. He's letting go of this queen, but knight at f6 takes, king d8, queen at e8 would be mate, so you'd have to play the king to e7. Electric Masada, just subscribe. Thanks for the support. Very low on time, chicken. White's in the driver's seat here. He's basically up a cold rook, or maybe a rook for a pawn. Okay, this is game over. xuanet has to win this. Hey, there we go. He's on the board again, 5-2. But xuanet's he didn't deserve to lose 5 in a row. Going for the same line here, but chicken has deviated already. Instead of playing the early d4, he's gone for knight c3. Okay, delayed d4 by a move, so now queen e7 won't be played. So knight e5 would be reasonably common, but xuanet, pawn at h3, go aggressive, move 6. We gotta be aggressive. So this is the style, and I think that's just a good practical choice. You play to your strengths. He's down 5-2, nothing to lose. Don't ever be discouraged from playing your natural style, because that's where your strength lies. So good to see pawn at h3, nice and early from xuanet. So if you're chicken here, what do? Knight takes c6. I don't think you can take this because of bishop takes f7. You probably do have to take a breath just to recapture. But knowing xuanet, he might try to play h takes g2. No, good, he's taken c6. Wow, just straight counter for g7. So we saw what happened before with king f8, pawn at h6. Xuanet will have learned a lesson from that. He may defend it with bishop f6. That's quite reasonable. Yeah, not as much a fan of hg. It's possible. H takes g, knight g7, king f8, because you're threatening this and this. Yeah, he's just gone the safe option. I think bishop f6 is very reasonable. Now you could consider capturing here. He goes bishop e5 first. So if f4, then what? F4 hg, take the rook goes to g1. Then you can put the bishop on d4 because f3 is available. That's actually a nice way to respond to f4. You can take here and then bishop d4, then probably rook takes g2, and that's still a game. Bishop f4. Okay. But this seems capturable. I don't understand bishop f4. For example, takes, knight takes g7, king f8, the knight comes back, bishop comes back. Possibly even you can ignore it because pawn at d2, so if bishop takes f4, you'd be taking it, but then queen takes g5. I don't like bishop f4 over f4. In fact, I'm surprised xuanet hasn't taken it yet. Maybe he's not even considering it. No, he is. This is good. King f8. Pawn at d2 is killing against knight h5 because king e2, bishop g4 is... that's curtains. That's game over. I don't know what Chicken's doing. It's as if he's just missed the value of bishop takes f4 here. This is xuanet's game to win. Well, it's his game to win or his game to lose. I mean, it's the term in tennis is it's on his racket. Pawn at e3, queen takes g5 is very simple. Again, xuanet will probably try to attack here, and I think that's fair enough. King f1. I don't think you can get away with taking this because pawn at h6 looks a bit dangerous. Like, this would be a nice move to be able to play at some stage where you can just claim, hey, I got all the material and you've got no attack. That's the kind of knockout move you're looking for. But bishop at h3 here, threatening queen g5, also very sensible. So let's play through that, for example. So bishop at h3, knight h5, queen takes g5, pawn at g7. Yeah, not much point now. This pawn's been taken. So material count, black is up a piece or a pawn, but more than that, has a much safer king. And xuanet has actually wisely here just gone, you know what, I'm going to remove your best dark square attacker, and there's no more offenders. Black has just got all the grip on the dark squares here. Doesn't even drop a pawn on d2. So he's just saying, I'm just up a piece, cold. So my good friend Bugzilla would say black here has the piece and the compensation because the white king is off balance. Black is good on the clock. So here, yeah, you just knight at e5 looks natural. Bishop e2 would need to be played to prevent the light squares from collapsing completely. Here's where you don't have to come up with a knockout blow as black. You can just push your advantage. So bishop at g4 looks natural still here. You don't want to allow white to get some momentum here. Okay, he's gone straight for the queen. I would have considered queen takes g5, in fact. Now white has something to play for. Is there? It's not quite made. It's close. Queen takes, bishop at f1, here, knight f2, king g1, knight back to h3. King h1, bishop takes g2, takes rook at f2. Yeah, I think Jasugi agrees. This is just mate. But will he go? He's got to go. Queen takes g1, bishop at f3. Well, what? What? Oh, he's got mate here. Oh my goodness. The knight takes g7 instead of rook takes g7 was maybe more double-edged, but both players went down to like 1 second, and yeah, let's not criticize either player for split-second decisions. But xuanet clutched there, and that's his strength, right? It's attacking, so it's nice to see him pull a win where he he nearly that was like pulling defeat from the jaws of victory, and then pulling victory from the jaws of defeat again. It nearly felt like. Like this Kata 67 says, Jasugi, I am watching you stream. Jasugi correcting him. We got too many people with names that start with J. Okay, so this time Chicken Crossroad giving up the pawn on c4 very quickly. I'm kind of surprised he went into the same line. xuanet fighting back here, 5-3. Joe Friedel says, is there a reason he didn't drop a piece on f1 instead of g1? Yes, that's a good question. So we've got GM J Friedel in the chat. Yeah, bishop at f1 would have been a better block than g1, because it avoids the queen takes g1 tactics. But before that, I think it was questionable that xuanet allowed g takes h6. Yeah, he didn't have to allow counterplay for white on the dark squares after wrangling such a grip on the dark squares. I actually feel strategically that was more of an issue than Chicken Crossroads play. But he booked the game in the dying seconds with a clutch mate, so credit to him for that. Okay. Again, xuanet finding a nice opening which matches his style. He's a piece for a pawn up. He's got something to hit, and you know he's hard to stop once you get some momentum going. So xuanet really closing the gap here. It's uncomfortable for black. Pawn at e7 takes. Knight at g7. I mean, this bishop is a nice asset for black. It's one of the best attackers. It's one of the best defenders. So like I'm already calling this 1-0 for xuanet, not because the position is 1-0, just the style and the natural progression, I suppose, if you like. For xuanet, I feel this is the kind of position that plays itself, and I think he'll naturally find good moves here. So a knight at d4 or a knight at f4 is quite natural. Try to swap off this bishop. A bishop may be useful on h4 to penetrate on the dark squares. So a knight on f4 is natural, but straight to f6, no mucking around. Very aggressive play. Not necessarily the soundest move, but definitely a good practical choice. If you are going to make I would call this an optimistic sacrifice, which is fine. But from a practical point, he's played it quickly, and I think there's a lot of merit in that. If you look at how the match is going, momentum starting to swing xuanet's way. This does muddy the waters. Knight at g7 is the idea, and you know white's giving up a piece back, but is basically going to have some huge dark square weaknesses to come in on. And he's chosen just to take here. He's going to let knight at g7 simmer. It opens up the file, it opens up dark squares. So if queen takes f6, maybe it's either pawn at g5 or it's knight at g4. It's something hitting f6. And then this d5 pawn could be under attack with a knight f6 fork, or you could have a pawn landing on g7. I actually think knight at g4 is the way forward, because then if the queen retreats, pawn at g7 coordinates well with knight at f6. You want to keep a pawn in hand. Not that pawn at g5 is so bad, because you've got g takes h6. This could be sidestepped, maybe king d1. You don't have to play c3, because then maybe bishop takes c3 could be an option. Just king d1 just shuts out the counterplay. But bishop at b4 also nice to provide some coverage on the dark squares. That's going to be useful at some stage. So it could even be king d1, h takes g5 could be an issue though, because queen takes b2. I didn't see that, so I'm not as confident in king d1 now after seeing h takes g5. Mind you, you don't have to take it with a bishop. You could still play knight at g4. There's no need to allow queen takes b2. And knight at g4 is nice because the black queen can't come forward. It has to go back if it wants to keep an eye on b2. And then knight at f6 would prevent b2 from being taken. You could capture g5 very comfortably. If you look at the clocks here, nice practical decision from xuanet, because he's absolutely burning chicken on the clock here. It's very comfortably attacking. Boom, boom. This is bread and butter. xuanet. Pawn at h7 coming. This is lights out. Bishop covers defense. There's no knight at c3. This is game over as far as I'm concerned. You could have played knight e5 check first even to push the king back before capturing g8. But I think that's going to be trivial here. Queen at a7 is game over. Knight here takes the knight, and knight at a7 to mate. Beautiful. And that, as they say, is that. xuanet winning 3 games. The comeback 5-4. Wow, like really playing some aggressive play there. Knight at f6. Nice to see xuanet just play instinctively. I mean, that's not really a calculated move. That's a stylistic, optimistic sacrifice, and his intuition is paid off there. GM Yasser01 in the chat. We've got a few GMs here today. I'm sorry I haven't done a stream in a long time, and it's nice to see GM J Friedel, GM Yasser01. We've got another legend in the chat, the real Ganejas. This is literally the real Ganejas. And Ganejas is probably the way I'm meant to say it. Original Swedish Bughouse legend from back in the 1990s. You know, as a kid, I mean, I was probably 14, but you know, Ganejas would have been one of the first inspiring Bughouse players that I would have looked up to. So it's fantastic to have you in the chat, and your contribution to the game has not been forgotten. He says, haha, I am blushing here. No, we don't forget you, man. So Ganejas used to be like, you know, 2600 plus when everyone else would have been pushing for 2400. Ganejas came before Vaboris, before myself, before all of us. Before the age of Chickencrossroad and the 12-teen or cheesy bread. Ganejas is the original Swedish Bughouse player. Now known on Lichess as Old Has-Been, which is very modest. But Yes, sir. Thanks for joining. He says, yeah, shame, we've missed you, John, but mentioning the domestic challenges, yikes, hang in there. Thanks, yes. Um, yeah, no, I was probably more optimistic at the start of this candidates round. We're probably about halfway through now, but yeah, I had an email with Yasser. I said, can I get you on for a stream? We'll do some dual commentary. And then COVID life just said, that you cannot stream. Um, so it's very nice to catch one, but would love to do that. So if we can get some more dual streams, we've had Mugwort on, we've had Clearcast. It would be great to get Yasser on again. I'd love to coordinate with more people, but it's just about whether time permits. So rather than me just blabbing on about my time poor situation in life, let's actually get to this situation on the board. Bishop takes b7. I mean, what's critical here is a rook is going to mate black. So rook b8, I'm not concerned so much just yet, but you've got to watch out this knight, because a white would like a knight on c6 to threaten these. And it's very much a matter of whether black can liquidate the threats quickly enough. You probably need to take c2 to clear space for the knight on f5 to get rid of the bishop on h6, which then liquidates the rook at h8 threat. That's a priority for black, in my opinion. So what is a priority for white is actually to stop that and somehow try to get this knight on b4. So if you played c3, for example, then what? Because white is actually very well defended now on f3. I nearly feel c3, because then at least you prevent black from capturing a pawn. Even here knight takes c2, then I wonder if he'll sack. I don't know if it's valid. Wow, pawn at d7. Ooh, the tactic. So the idea was if queen takes d7, bishop c6 would be threatening to win a major for h8. Xuanet very quickly deciding not to allow that, covers knight at c6. But black did end up getting back 2 pawns for that piece, so material is balanced again. And now black is working on undermining the aggressive pieces. So white doesn't really have enough to hold on to this stronghold here. I actually prefer black, because if black can get out of this, black could effectively win with defense. And the only thing is that's not Xuanet's natural style. So pawn at e6 could be a move here. Bishop takes e6, king g8. Oh, sorry, bishop takes e6, knight at g5, knight takes e6. And pawn at e6. If king takes, queen c4. I don't like knight at e5. I just don't think white gets enough from that. I could be missing something here, but I just felt pawn at e6 was the most offensive move. I think you put your king on a black square here, and you basically say, well, if you play bishop at e5, so what? I've got pawn at f6. Okay, even losing a queen is not too big a concern for black. It's very safe. Lots of pieces in hand. Bishop at d6. You just need to be careful, because if you open too quickly, maybe there's a dark square weakness. I don't think it's enough yet. It's close. Takes, pawn at f6 is probably the play. Takes, bishop at g5. And then the king would have to retreat. Queen at f6, king g8, bishop takes h4 was what I saw. Okay, he's just saying I'm locking the king on h6. So you have to cover. There's no knockout blow, so you've got to defend here. Easier said than done. Knight at e6 is probably the move, because you need to cover bishop at f4 and bishop at g7. But if bishop at f4, you probably don't take it. You probably play pawn at g5. So here xuanet's defense is going to be tested, and Chicken's offensive resources are going to be tested. Could have a 5-all result here. I think objectively, black can get out of this one. Nice. He's threatening white's biggest offensive piece. I think xuanet's got this one. Okay, does he want to take this first? Yes, very resourceful. He's found a clear path back to g7, if knight at g4. Yeah, white's clutching at straws here. Maybe takes here. He's looking for some dark squares, but should be okay. Yeah, here you've just got to absorb the attack and say, white doesn't have enough material. He should run out, maybe. Knight at f5 is still safe. Maybe he's got mate. He shouldn't go for the attack yet. I just don't. No, he can. He's got 2 queens in hand. He wins. Wow, xuanet! Comeback! 5-all. Great comeback. Really hats off to xuanet. Solid mental strength, because when you're 5-1 down against Chicken and you've honestly blundered a few games, you could easily let that landslide. So from a practical match fitness perspective, kudos to xuanet for bringing that to 5-all. That's a stunning performance. Wow, xuanet really turned that around on the back foot. Very impressive. Let's have a look at the cross table, because I've not been on for a while. Beautiful cross table managed by Legion Destroyer and the Finisher. Credits to them. This is a beautiful spreadsheet, which will probably get updated before I can even look at it. Yeah, 5-all here for Chicken. I think we're going to see the Finisher will probably update this straight away, because he's in the chat. I also have access to this. I'm just not logged on. So let me. I just want to make it clear to the viewers without. There we go. Without my face blocking the screen. Beautiful. It all shows up here. Here's where you can check out all the results. I'm gonna post the link in the chat. So if you want to have a look at the standings, you can. And there you have it. We've got the Finisher who's in chat, who has just updated the score 5-all live update. Too many results to review. I think what is nice is at the bottom of this sheet you can actually, well, on the side you can see a summary here, but there's all sorts of stats, and given that we're going off the number of points won, it's going to be this sort of information that's critical. So it's how many points you've got, how many matches remaining. Chicken Crossroad now on 45 points, but only 4 matches remaining. He's at the top. If you count it off percentage games won, that's your best indicator. And here you can see Jasuki 99, 84% games won. He's actually only played 4 matches, I believe, but he took variance only 10-0. Mugwort 8-2, Bugzilla 7.5 to 2.5. Art of Deception 8-2. So his worst score is 7.5. Jasugi definitely the man to beat, but behind him, Chicken, GSVC, and the Finisher all 60% or higher. I do want to call out the Finisher. I think he's a standout improvement in the top tier this year. Very impressive results. GSVC had already established himself a couple candidates rounds ago. Chicken Crossroad we know well. But Bugzilla is one of the veterans of the game, and the Finisher took him down 6 games to 4 the other day. Took him down 6 games to 4 in the double elimination knockout as well. So the Finisher has only actually lost 1 match, and that was to Chicken 4-6. Has beaten Master Tan 7-3. Penguin, GM Andrew Tang, he took him down 7-3, and xuanet, he also won 6-4. So to my eyes, the Finisher is a standout halfway through the event. there's no fluking performance like 60% against this field. Let's close the lineup. We've got Bugzilla over 50%, Penguin and xuanet just sitting beneath 50% here. Mugwort as well, 45%, and then variants only 40%. Master Tan, one of our veterans of the game, probably a bit behind the field, and Art of Deception followed by King Switcher at the bottom. I think King Switcher has been very busy. We should probably get a few reminders out to him because we need to see some more matches from King Switcher, so I hope that he can get active again. Yes, so okay, he says sexy, also veteran. Yeah, I mean veteran in the sense that like Bugzilla has been playing the game longer than I have. I mean, we're talking more than 10, 15 years. The finishers probably come along in the last 5 years, so I'm calling veteran status as in veteran since forever, not necessarily in candidates terms. So yes, the finisher did play 2 candidates ago, but did not perform at the same level that he is now. So that's the comment I'm making. Who have we got lined up next? I think there's another match coming up. It's in 2 days' time. Jasugi 99 versus the finisher around the same time, which is not great for me to stream. But hey, if Spencer wakes me up at that time and I could stream like I did today, I'll try to put some time in. So really nice to see you guys all. Jay Friedel says, where is Katask? Unfortunately, Katask, he was going to play and then he pulled out at the last minute just before the event began. So yeah, Katask and myself sitting on the sidelines. Oppelwesen, the defending champion, will play the candidate that wins the most game points. Let's be clear, it's not the matches you win, it's not the 10 game matches you win, it's actually how many games out of the possible 110 can you win. So yeah, I'm gonna call it there. It's 4:25. I'm gonna get back to sleep, see what sleep I can get before I gotta get up for work again. It's been really nice to see you all. Fantastic to have a few GMs join and legends in the chat. I'm just sorry I haven't put more up, but yeah, we'll try to do more. We'll see how we go. Hope you enjoyed that. I'll be posting this to YouTube if you missed any of the action, and yeah, I hope you get to enjoy more of the candidates matches soon. Alright, thanks for the support everyone. Stay safe with COVID about, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.